Okay, I want you to think about something for a second. Think about the last time you went out with your friend group. Maybe it was dinner, maybe it was a weekend trip, maybe it was just drinks on a Friday night, and think about how much you spent. Not what you planned to spend, what you actually spent. Because there's a gap there, right? There's always a gap. You told yourself, I'll just get one drink, maybe split an appetizer, and then someone orders a bottle for the table. Someone suggests moving to a second bar. Someone says, let's just Uber there, it's easier. And suddenly your casual $30 night became a $170 night. And here's the part that really gets me. You didn't even decide to spend that money. You just went along with it. You went along with the current of your friend group. And look, I'm not here to tell you to stop having fun. That's not what this video is about. But what if I told you that this exact dynamic, this unconscious financial current created by the people you spend the most time with, is arguably the single biggest factor determining whether you retire comfortably or whether you're still grinding at 67 wondering where all the money went. Because here's the thing, we talk a lot about budgeting, we talk about investing, compound interest, salary negotiation, side hustles, all of that matters. But almost nobody talks about the social infrastructure of your financial life, the invisible architecture that your friend group builds around you that either lifts you up financially or slowly, quietly drags you under. And your 30s, that's when this force is at its absolute peak. This is going to make some people uncomfortable, but I think it's one of the most important financial conversations you're not having. My name is Billy, and I spend way too much time thinking about how social dynamics secretly control our financial outcomes. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right on paper, you've got the decent job, you're trying to save, you're aware of investing, but you still feel like your money disappears faster than it should, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to break down something I'm calling the invisible social tax. It's the financial cost of belonging to your friend group that never shows up on any budget spreadsheet, that no financial advisor ever asks you about, and that is quietly redirecting tens of thousands, or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars away from your future self. And we're going to get into the real numbers, the psychology, and what you can actually do about it without becoming a hermit. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start with the math, because this is where it gets real very quickly. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data updated through early 2026, the average American household between ages 25 and 34 spends approximately $58,600 per year on total expenditures. Now, within that, there are categories that are heavily influenced by your social circle. I'm talking about dining out, entertainment, apparel, alcohol, travel, and what I'd call lifestyle maintenance. The stuff you spend money on, not because you independently decided to, but because it's the norm within your group. The average American in their early 30s is now spending roughly $4,200 a year on dining out, about $3,100 on entertainment and recreation, around $2,800 on alcohol, and that number's actually been trending up. Travel spending for this age group hit roughly $3,600 annually as of 2025. And then there's the sneaky one, apparel and personal care, which averages around $2,400. Now, add those up. That's approximately $16,100 a year in socially influenced spending. But here's what most people don't realize. That's the average. If your friend group skews even slightly higher income or slightly more lifestyle oriented, you're probably closer to $22,000 to $28,000 a year. So let's run a scenario. Let's say your social spending is $24,000 a year. Not extravagant. You're not flying private or popping bottles. You're just keeping pace with a group that likes nice dinners, weekend trips a few times a year, decent clothes, maybe a golf membership or a gym that costs more than it probably should. $24,000 a year. Now, you might be thinking, Billy, that's my money. I earned it. I'm allowed to enjoy my life. And you're right. You absolutely are. I'm not arguing against that. But let me show you the other side of this equation, because I don't think most people have actually seen it. If you took even half of that, $12,000 a year, and invested it into a broad market index fund averaging roughly 9.5% annual return, which is slightly below the S&P 500's historical average, to keep this conservative, over 30 years from age 32 to 62, that $12,000 $12,000 a year becomes approximately $1.94 million. I'll say that again, $12,000 a year. That's $1,000 a month, and it turns into nearly $2 million. Now, the full $24,000 invested the same way, that's roughly $3.88 million. At 62 years old, that's the difference between retiring rich and retiring stressed. And look, I know nobody's going to cut their entire social budget to zero. That's not realistic and that's not healthy, but here's the point I'm making. The financial cost of your social circle isn't just what you spend today, it's the exponential future wealth you're trading away, and most people have never once framed it that way. Okay, so now let's talk about why this happens, because it's not just about willpower, it's way deeper than that. There's a concept in behavioral economics called social benchmarking. It basically means humans don't evaluate their financial decisions in a vacuum. We evaluate them relative to the people around us, and this has been studied extensively. A 2024 study published in the Journal of Consumer Research, and this one's fascinating, found that individuals adjust their spending upward by an average of 18% when they're in the presence of peers who spend more than they do. 18%. Not because they consciously decide to, but because their brain literally recalibrates what normal looks like in real time. Here's the thing, your brain has a feature, not a bug, called social norming. It evolved to help us fit into tribes. 10,000 years ago, matching the behavior of your group was a survival strategy. If everyone in your tribe ran, you didn't stop to ask why. That impulse kept you alive. But in 2026, that same impulse is making you order the $19 cocktail instead of the $8 beer. It's making you say yes to the Airbnb in Scottsdale when you could have done a perfectly great weekend camping trip. It's making you lease the car that's one tier above what you can comfortably afford because 3 of your friends just got new cars and your 2019 Honda suddenly feels inadequate even though it runs perfectly fine. And this is where it gets really interesting. This effect compounds in your 30s, specifically because of something psychologists call identity consolidation. Your 30s are when you're solidifying your adult identity. Who am I? What kind of life do I live? What's my standard? And your friend group is the single biggest mirror reflecting those answers back to you. So when your friend group normalizes a $200 dinner, your brain doesn't flag that as expensive anymore. It flags it as standard. When your group takes 2 or 3 big vacations a year, your brain stops categorizing that as a luxury. It becomes a baseline expectation. And this is the trap, because once something becomes your baseline, cutting it feels like losing something rather than choosing something. Loss aversion, another well-documented psychological principle, tells us that humans feel losses approximately twice as intensely as equivalent gains. So the pain of downgrading your lifestyle to save more feels twice as bad as the pleasure you'd get from watching your investment account grow. Your brain is literally wired to choose the social spending over the future wealth every single time, unless you intervene deliberately. Now, I want to get specific here because not all friend groups create the same financial gravity, and I think it's helpful to identify what kind of financial environment your group is actually creating around you. From everything I've researched and observed, there are basically 5 friend group financial archetypes in your 30s, and most groups are a blend, but they tend to lean heavily into one. Archetype 1, the lifestyle escalators. This is the group where every year, everything gets a little more expensive, the restaurants get nicer, the trips get farther, the birthdays get more elaborate. Nobody in the group explicitly says, let's spend more, but the implicit standard keeps rising. This is arguably the most financially dangerous group because the escalation is so gradual you don't notice it until you look at your spending from 5 years ago and realize it's doubled. Archetype 2, the keeping up crew. This is the group where 1 or 2 people are high earners and everyone else is unconsciously trying to match their lifestyle. This one's really common in mixed income friend groups, and it's painful because the people stretching to keep up often feel ashamed to say anything, so they just quietly accumulate credit card debt. According to the Federal Reserve's 2025 data, the average credit card balance for Americans aged 30 to 39 is now approximately $7,600. And I'd bet a significant chunk of that is socially driven spending. Archetype 3, the event group. These are the friends who connect almost exclusively through spending activities. Every interaction involves a transaction, dinner, drinks, concerts, trips, sporting events. There's very little connection interaction happening outside of paid experiences. And the problem here isn't that these activities are bad, it's that the friendship becomes functionally expensive to maintain. The cost of admission to the friendship is constant spending. Archetype 4, the entrepreneurs. Now, this one's interesting because it can go either way. If your friend group is full of ambitious, business-minded people, you might benefit from the motivation and knowledge sharing. But there's also a shadow side. Entrepreneurial friend groups sometimes normalize risk in dangerous ways. Just put it on a credit card. You've got to spend money to make money, and they can create pressure to display success before you've actually achieved it. The number of 30-somethings I've seen lease luxury cars and rent expensive apartments to manifest success while having negative net worth is honestly staggering. Archetype 5, the builders. This is the group where financial conversations are normal, where someone can say, hey, that's outside my budget this month without anyone blinking, where people share investment strategies, talk about savings rates, celebrate each other's financial milestones. Look, this group is rare, really rare, but the data shows it's incredibly powerful. A 2025 Fidelity study found that individuals who reported having at least 2 close friends they regularly discussed finances with had an average net worth 82% higher than those who didn't. 82%. Let that sink in. So here's my question for you, and be honest. Which archetype does your friend group most resemble? All right, let's put some real structure around this concept of the invisible social tax. I define the invisible social tax as the difference between what you would spend based on your own independent financial priorities and what you actually spend as a result of social influence. And I think for most people in their 30s, this tax is somewhere between $6,000 and $15,000 per year. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's take someone named Sarah. Sarah is 33. She makes $82,000 a year. After taxes, health insurance, and her 401k contribution, she takes home about $4,800 a month. Her fixed expenses, rent, car payment, insurance, utilities, subscriptions, groceries, total about $3,200. That leaves her $1,600 of discretionary income. Now, Sarah's friend group is solidly in the lifestyle escalator category. Here's what a typical month looks like for socially driven spending. 2 nice dinners out, $180. Weekend brunch twice, $90. Drinks after work, let's say twice a month, $120. One friend's birthday celebration, $150 between dinner, drinks, and a gift, a shared streaming or activity subscription that the group does together, $45, and then maybe one bigger thing, a concert, a day trip, another $120. That's $705 a month, roughly $8,460 a year. And I'd argue Sarah would independently choose to spend maybe $350 of that. The other $355 per month, $4,260 per year, is the invisible social tax. Now, you might be thinking, Billy, $4,260 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. And in a single year, maybe it isn't. But remember what we talked about with compound interest. $4,260 a year invested at 9.5% annually over 30 years. That's approximately $688,000. Sarah is paying almost $700,000 in lifetime wealth for spending she didn't even consciously choose. That's not a rounding error. That's a house. That's a retirement. That's financial freedom. And here's the really brutal part. Sarah doesn't even particularly enjoy half of that spending. She goes to the second brunch because she feels obligated. She goes to the weeknight drinks because she doesn't want to be the one who always says no. She spends more on the birthday dinner than she's comfortable with because everyone else seems fine with splitting the check at the expensive restaurant. The invisible social tax isn't just costing her money. It's costing her money she doesn't even get proportional happiness from. That is the worst possible financial outcome. Spending that doesn't build wealth and doesn't build joy. Okay, so this is where I want to shift from the problem to the solution, because I don't want anyone watching this to feel hopeless or like they need to abandon their friends. That's not the move. But you do need a strategy. Here are 5 specific actionable things you can start doing immediately. Number 1, conduct a social spending audit. This week, not next month, this week, go through your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Highlight every expense that was directly driven by a social interaction. Every dinner, every trip, every group activity, add them up, then honestly ask yourself, of these expenses, which ones would I have chosen independently, and which ones did I default into because of the group? Just awareness alone, just seeing the number, changes behavior. Studies on financial awareness show that people who track socially driven spending reduce it by an average of 23% within 90 days without making any other changes. Number 2, establish your financial non-negotiables before social situations arise. This is a concept from behavioral design. The idea is that you make your spending decisions before you're in the emotional environment that makes it hard to say no. So before the group chat blows up about the Vegas trip, you've already decided, my discretionary social budget this month is $500. You've already decided before you walk into the restaurant, I'm spending no more than $45 tonight. The decision is made when your prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, is in charge, not when your social brain is being activated by group pressure and cocktail menus. Number 3, introduce lower cost social alternatives without making it weird. This is an art, not a science, but it's doable. Here's the key. You don't say, I can't afford that. You say, I'd rather do this instead. You reframe it as preference, not limitation. Hey, instead of going out Saturday, why don't we do a cookout at my place? There's this free outdoor concert happening. Who's in? I found this great hiking trail. We should check it out. You'd be surprised how many people in your group are also feeling the financial pressure, but are too afraid to be the first one to suggest something cheaper. Be that person. You're not being cheap. You're being a leader. Number 4, find or build your builder circle. This doesn't mean replacing your current friends. It means supplementing them. You need at least 2 or 3 people in your life with whom you can have honest financial conversations. People who will celebrate your savings milestones, not just your spending experiences. People who will say, hey, have you looked into maxing out your Roth IRA? The same way your other friends say, hey, have you seen this new restaurant? Look, a 2026 survey from Charles Schwab found that 72% of millennials and older Gen Z respondents said they feel pressure to spend more than they're comfortable with in social situations. 72%. That means nearly 3 out of 4 people in your friend group probably feel the same way you do. Someone just needs to crack the door open. Number 5, and this is the big one. Redefine what generosity means in your friendships, because a lot of this social spending is driven by a fear of being perceived as cheap or not generous. We equate spending with caring. If I don't go to the expensive dinner, I'm a bad friend. If I don't chip in for the extravagant birthday gift, I don't care enough. But here's what I've learned, and this took me way too long to figure out. The most generous thing you can do for the people you love is to be financially stable. Being the friend who can actually help in a crisis because you have savings. Being the friend who doesn't need to borrow money. Being the friend who can retire with dignity and not become a financial burden on their family. That is generosity. That is caring. And it requires saying no to some spending today so you can say yes to much bigger things tomorrow. Let me paint you 2 pictures to close this out because I think the long view is what really drives this home. Person A and Person B are both 32 years old. Both make $85,000 a year. Same city, same cost of living, same starting net worth. The only difference is their friend groups. Person A's friend group has an average invisible social tax of about $12,000 a year. Nice dinners, weekend trips, lifestyle creep, the whole thing. Person A saves and invests about $6,000 a year after all expenses. Person B identifies the social tax early, adjusted their friendships, not abandoned them, adjusted them, introduced cheaper hangouts, found a builder circle, set pre-commitments. Person B's social tax is about $4,000 a year. Person B saves and invests $14,000 a year. Same income, same starting point, different social environments. At 62 years old, 30 years later, Person A's investment portfolio at 9.5% average annual returns is worth approximately $970,000. That's not bad, but it's not retire rich money in $2,056 accounting for inflation. Person B, $2.26 million. The difference? $1.29 million. And it came down to one thing: the financial environment created by the people they spent the most time with. Person A isn't dumb. Person A isn't lazy. Person A didn't make some catastrophic financial mistake. They just never examined the invisible current pulling their money away. $800 a month at a time, one brunch and one trip, and one, it's fine. Let's just split it evenly at a time. Look, I want to be really clear about something. This video is not anti-friendship. This is not me telling you to become some isolated, frugal robot who eats rice and beans alone in a dark apartment. Friendships are one of the most important predictors of happiness, health, and longevity. The research on that is overwhelming, and I'm not disputing it for 1 second. But the quality and structure of your friendships matter enormously. And one dimension of that structure, the financial dimension, is almost never examined. We pick our friends based based on personality, shared interests, humor, history. We almost never think about the financial ecosystem those friendships create around us. And in your 30s, when your earning potential is rising, when compound interest has the most runway, when your financial habits are hardening into permanent patterns, that ecosystem might be the most important factor in your entire financial life. So here's what I want you to do right now. First, share this video with one friend you trust. One person you think would be open to having this conversation. Because remember, 72% of people feel the same pressure. You sharing this could be the crack in the door that changes both of your financial futures. Second, do the social spending audit I described. 3 months of statements. Highlight the socially driven expenses. Calculate your invisible social tax. Just know the number. That's step 1. And third, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because we're going to keep breaking down these hidden financial dynamics that nobody else is talking about. The stuff that actually moves the needle, not the skip the latte advice, the structural, psychological, real life stuff that determines whether you build wealth or just earn income. Your friend group isn't just who you hang out with, it's who you become financially. Choose that environment intentionally. I'll see you in the next one.